This is Mr. Pat Angst, and question one is, how old were you when the attack of 9/11 occurred?
I was 33 years old.
And where were you on the morning of 9/11, 2001?
So the morning of 9/11, I was home at my residence, and I was scheduled to go in at 1 p.m. to go to work.
And what was your job at the time?
I was a New York City police detective, and I was in Brooklyn North Narcotics.
Okay, and how did you find out what was going on that morning?
So I was actually home sleeping because I had an afternoon tour. When my phone, several phone calls, people looking for me, people that thought I was at work. So they would notify, and then it was turn on the TV, and then work was calling to get into work as soon as possible.
And so what was your first reaction or thought when you turned the TV on and got those phone calls?
So my first reaction was, what had happened and the enormity of it, and just getting myself together to get into work. Like I said, my first thought is get as many changes of uniform and clothes as possible because I knew I wouldn't be home for a few days.
And so can you give like a brief description of what it was like when you got onto the scene?
So I didn't get there till 6 a.m. the next morning, and the towers had already fallen. All three buildings, building 7 as well, and just the size of to see what had happened and to see the actual destruction was actually more than incredible. It was unimaginable to see how much debris and destruction and just chaos there actually was. Still, almost a full 24 hours later.
And so did you ever go in like around the buildings and stuff searching for people?
So we did. So there was for a while. Each day was you basically got different assignments, and some days you'd be on the actual pile of debris, and they called it a bucket brigade, and they were pulling buckets of debris out, trying to dig and see to find survivors or rescue victims. And then there were days where we went up into surrounding buildings. And the purpose for the surrounding buildings, we would go in to search for plane parts or, God forbid, people or other victims of that were not necessarily in the towers, but there was so much destruction and damage to the buildings around those buildings that, there could have been other people hurt and there were worse. So we did those kind of searches as well.
How were they able to account for who was missing and who was found?
So the only way you could really account for missing and was people had to be reported. If you weren't reported missing, they wouldn't know you were missing. And then accounting for the bodies, they did mostly through DNA. Sometimes people that were found fully intact were, able to be identified, but not many. And then what they did was they did a lot of DNA testing through different body parts or bones that were found.
Do you know anybody who died in the 9/11 attack?
I did. I had a friend, Tommy Jergen. He was a state court officer. He was a buddy of mine that I was actually at his wedding in June, and this happened in September. So,
And what do you think led to the attack?
oh man, obviously a strong hate for our country, but some lax security systems, and not knocking anyone, because I guess up until that day, no one really anticipated how easy it would be to take over a plane that quick and to do the damage they did. So, but thank God we're in a better place today, right?
So do you believe the nation is safer now?
100%. I do. I think that they take way more precautions, and I don't think you could easily take a plane like you did. The way they lock the cockpit doors and everything, they're just not designed to open. So I think we're better off. And even just in general, you're never going to prevent everything, but I think everyone's more vigilant these days.
And so that the 20th anniversary just happened. What did you feel about that?
So 20 years is a long time, and it's just a lot of remembrance. And you think back so people that discuss it, and you think back of where you were, and people always say, well, where were you that day? And to be able to say that, as part of history gives you a lot to think about. But there's a lot that weighs on your mind about, different things you did those days and the days upcoming. I was there for a long time. I probably spent, 60, 90, maybe more days down there after the incident. So there's just a lot to look back on. And, just grateful I wasn't there. I was one of the ones that have still survived. There's still people dying to this day from the cancers and everything else because of the effects of 9/11. So just to be fortunate enough that it didn't affect me in any way as of yet, I'm pretty happy.
So do you feel the long-term effects were just as important as the short-term?
100%, because like I said, you're still having people that are still being diagnosed with 9/11 related cancers. The first few days down there, they say were the most important because that was when the most toxins were in the air. And at that time, they didn't have masks for anyone. It took a week or so to get masks to all of us. So that whole first week, everybody was just running around. And, if you think about it, you're working hard, you're breathing heavy, and you're inhaling everything that was down there. So you're seeing a lot of effects from it now. And people are still sick and still dying from the effects. And then even post-traumatic stuff as well, mentally, what people saw and what they did. Some people handle it different.
So how long did it take for subways and roads to be opened after?
Wow. So around the immediate area, it was months. Some of the, there was a subway that was directly under the World Trade Center. I'll bet you that didn't open for a year or two at least, maybe more. I don't even remember the exact time. But one of the subways ran directly under the World Trade Center. So the immediate roads and everything, they were months and months. And then they tried to get as much, what they did, they perimetered a big section and then they would slowly close it in as they cleaned it up. But it took a long time.
So do you believe the memorialization of these different places is as important as the attack itself?
I do. And again, it's a tremendous part of history. I think they're saying it's one of the biggest attacks on the United States soil. And to get to see it, so in the memorial, I actually went to visit it one time. And they actually have audio recordings and you can hear 911 calls and you can see actual fire trucks that were, just destroyed in the but you get to see and hear a lot. And then it's in the basement of the World Trade Center. So you get to kind of see what's down there and how deep it's down there. So it's definitely, it humbles you. It makes you really get to see and get a good grasp on what happened that day.
Oh, that's all I have. Thank you.
No worries, pal. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.